So Sammy, what's interesting and Vicky and Tina, what's interesting is I don't really think anybody's so that's and the stuff that they are promoting and putting forward. So it kind of reminds me of the parable. Basically, if you want to hide things from people, you put it in a book. All right.
It's available to all member associations, right?
Yeah.
So the whole document, could we, how could I get it, man?
It's just go on let me see, let me put it in the chat here, man. Let me try and get it. Where do I have it?
I want on my iPad.
Yeah, I'll just send it to you in the chat and you just download it.
Coming back in national team, right? We got everybody this Saturday?
Yeah, I think so. You going to see them play?
No, it costs too much, man.
And you can't take on the emotional strain?
Emotional, not really. I would say that is really emotional, I just think that I don't feel comfortable traveling yet.
Yeah.
And everybody's traveling, but I'm not comfortable yet. 1% traveling to home, St. Vincent. That's it.
Akeem, you ready to go to stream and go? All right, let me just.
Yeah, I'm ready. Yeah.
All right.
Cool. No, when you get here.
Let me just go ahead and do this one thing. All right, so Sammy, it's in the chat. You could just go ahead and download the document. All right. Let me know when you could see the screen whenever it comes up.
It's on.
It's up. All right. All right. So welcome again to everyone to another session. Dribble FC's Read the Game. We're continuing in our series on recommendations from FIFA to develop each member association. It has been for me a great experience going through this document for you and an eye opener. But to put this in context, I thought this quote would cement basically the function of it. So, in terms of having a direction and in terms of working together, in terms of being a team, I think this document can help us move forward. But as it says here, we are not a team because we work together. We're a team because we care, respect, trust. Sorry, because we respect, trust, and care for each other. I think a lot of this particular side of the conversation is missing. The actual respect and trust and care, and the ability to have a conversation without feeling as if you're being threatened and you are basically working for your survival. Just having an open, frank conversation when nobody feels like they are disrespected. I think that's somewhere that we need to get to as a people, and it's a culture that is needed.
I'm so glad you mentioned.
Yeah. So for Player of the Week, I just wanted to highlight this practice game series that has been going on. Well, it went on last week. We had a very fruitful weekend. So close to about, I actually did the numbers, but I just don't have the paper in front of me. We had about 80 players participating for the weekend. Well, more than 80 players participating for the weekend. We had them in all categories, whether it be the U13s, U15s, males, under 17, females, and senior males. For the senior males, on Sunday we saw Assistant Team versus Sand Hills. Senior males on Saturday, Chelsea versus Jebels. The under 17, we had Hope versus System 3 and Blossom versus Jebels. In the under 13, there was Jebel versus Blossom and System 3 versus Jebel as well. On Friday, Jebel played System 3 and Hope International. So we had a good number of games. And for me, it was quite fun. My highlight was 10 o'clock on Saturday when the juniors, the under 13s were playing. I think Akeem would concur on that. I think the persons who were there were quite entertained by what the kids were doing. And hopefully I will be able to show you a few clippings later on at the end of my presentation. All right, so for tonight's session again, what we're going to be looking to cover is talent identification and development and recommendations on how to develop a talent and identification and development program. All right, so talent identification and development. Every talent deserves a chance. I'll say that again. Every talent deserves a chance, regardless of country size or success in the footballing endeavors. It cannot afford to be complacent with its talent pool due to the inefficiency in talent identification and development. MAs around the globe need to dedicate significant amount of time, effort, and resources to constructing effective system and strategies for those areas by closing the gaps in identification and development. MAs can treasure the unique talents within their countries by helping them to reach their full potential. So I'll leave the floor open now for more so discussion. What's your view, Sammy and Pinna, and even so Vicky, from your context in America, what do you think about the talent identification process of St. Vincent? And as I said, Vicky, you could highlight from your perspective. And Akeem as well, you could highlight. What do you think about our talent identification process? How do you think it could be better?
Well, here in the US, right? I always tell a story. If you're a female anywhere in the US and you're pretty good, US soccer will find you. No one get lost in the system because the states, the tongues, there's soccer all around. Saturday, Sunday. And because of that, the best identification system.
Mm-hmm.
And you're talking about areas where, where US soccer should not be. They're there. And you have to really give it to them, for that. For example, right, there's this girl, her name is Jillian. It's a good story. Jillian came to our camp when she was 4 years old. Right? And at that time, she's dribbling, 3 and 4, 5, 6 girls, scoring, right? So when we went back to lunch, I told those guys, hey, this is the best young player I've ever seen. And everybody's laughing. Some of you always, you always say the result with your stuff. Now she's 16. When she started her freshman year in high school, she got a full scholarship to go to college already, full Division 1. He's only on the 17 team right now, the US on the 17 team. And they knew about her long time. And the reason why is because they're playing from Sunday to Sunday, from month to month, from season to season, from year to year. And if you have that kind of system, the identification will be very, very easy, in my opinion.
All right.
Well,
What else? Akeem, go ahead, B.
yeah, there is a lot of opportunity, and it's much more competitive now. Still, I think with the boys, it's even more competitive, but there's a lot more opportunity now. And the talent selection process has grown. The USSF has its own scouts. From what I have learned, I know a local one who was scouting for them. I don't know the exact process of where they go, who they see, why they see who, those details. There has been a league called the ECNL, excuse me, that stemmed from the lack of the growth of an academy league here when USSF created an academy system. I think it was around 2007, 2008, something like that. And now USSF actually has an academy for the girls. There's been some evolution in the past 2 years. I don't exactly know where they are with that, but it's in competition with the ECNL, which focuses on playing only really, really elite teams. And a lot of times they do tons of traveling, and it requires a lot of money. So from my perspective, and also from people whose comments I've read online, a lot of this really gears towards the pay to play situation. So again, the controversy is the people who get seen are the ones who can pay. And there are a lot of people who would be able to develop, who have developed to a certain point, and then would be able to develop if they had the financial support there. Of course, there's a big contrast between the U.S. and St. Vincent, but it is in the root the same kind of problem. You know, if you can get there, then you get the attention. Unless you're fortunate enough to have like local community leaders. For example, we have local community leaders in, you know, like the Jamaican and the Haitian diaspora that help those players here get not just trained, but also seen and recruited. And sometimes are able to be registered, perhaps even with a scholarship in one of these higher level clubs. They're not often available, but they do have that option for really elite, really, you know, high potential players. So there is still that component that we're dealing with here in the United States, because college coaches do go around and recruit everywhere. You know, they even fly to the Caribbean and recruit. They fly to other places and recruit. And they go to tournaments here all over, which is one thing that the U.S. has as a benefit that other places do not. But there is plenty, like Sammy said, there's plenty of opportunity for girls to be seen if it's what they want to do. And that's a whole other controversy and discussion because of how we have handled, we as in general, you know, populations have handled women, girls and women playing in soccer, where they lose the love of the sport or they never even had it. They just, you know, were there because they were told to be there.
Mm-hmm. Right. Great contribution.
Yeah, just to continue on where Vicky left off, a similar situation exists in St. Vincent in terms that I think that we need to go much more into the communities, you know, out in the countrysides, you know, because you find most of the players, you know, who you identify and who plays, who have access to, like, the local academies like Sardine and your team and a couple others. And so, because then Samuel said the last time, and we had some sessions going out to schools and things in the countryside. And we were blown away with the kind of talent that we saw in a couple of those schools. And a lot of the time, especially the females were playing football for the first time. And, you know, you could see, you know, that talent is just there. It just needs to be harnessed, and then, you know, mold it, you know, to how you want it to be. So we got to try to see if we could get out more into those communities and, you know, identify the talent. Eh?
Yep. Akeem, any contributions, or do you want me to continue? Do we get any question? Okay. All right. Go ahead, Sammy. Go ahead.
I think before you could have talent, before you could identify talent, they have to be played someplace on a regular basis. So, exactly. Understand? And let me tell you something now. I believe in practice, man. When you practice, the more you practice, you're going to get better. You understand? So somebody you might see, if you practice every day, somebody that you will see, you start looking at them, say 6 months ago. 6 months from now, these guys are better. You understand? They develop quickly. They get stronger. They grow more. And we're missing a lot of stuff. We're missing a lot of stuff. And we take it for granted. And I'm saying, I'm glad Theon bringing all this thing to light, because we as we pick up these things. These things have to survive for too often, and this is where we are right now in terms of our football. We are behind a lot of associations right now. You see that we don't have professional players overseas. Where's the special 16-year-old? There's one in every country, several. Who's that person convinced? So we really have to make a lot of changes, when it comes to football, when it comes to development of football, and it starts with the youths. So sorry, Scrum is not here right now.
You're trying to hot up your head.
One thing that I missed out on mentioning is the Olympic development program that we have here, the ODP system that's been going on for forever, where there are tryouts where basically the end game is to play for the national team. So you have Olympic development program tryouts all over different parts of the state. Then they create a state team, like 2 different teams. Then they play against other state teams, and they create a regional team. Then they play against other regional teams. And from these kids, they end up selecting the national team. So it's obviously a system they have to have because it's such a large country. But that's how they officially run it. So it's called ODP, Olympic Development Program. And then a while back, they also another program that was created was called ID2, but that was run separately by a different organization. I'm not sure exactly how that's run as well, but that was more of an independent scouting. And I don't really know the ins of who got to be scouted or who did not get to be scouted. What I know is, usually money has an influence in that, and connections has an influence in that. But that Olympic development program is a big one that I should have mentioned before, the ODP system.
All right.
So I don't know if that's something that you guys can do, or it's the same thing that you guys are doing. You just have it called a different way, and that's already how you pull together. How do you guys pull together the national team for the younger ones?
So on that note, Vicky, I do understand what these gentlemen are saying. The fact that we participate in every single junior competition that exists, it means talent has been identified. I think the issue may be the fact that you have the team would have meant some selection would have been taken place.
So listen, okay. So
yes.
Listen to this. Yeah.
Yes.
Listen to this, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're in probably the second week of training with the national team, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, Saturday sent me, Saturday sent me down here to try out, or somebody. And that's what it is down there. It seems like.
Well, that's usually the case. What I'm saying, the fact that we are participating means that there's a selection. The problem is the process of selection is it leaves a lot to be desired. So for me, a lot of the time, the team is dependent on where training is. So if the training is at Stubbs, you know who can show up at Stubbs? People who live close to Stubbs. If it's at Sand Hill, you know who can show up? Those who live close to Sand Hill. So that just goes to show, just to confirm what you said, it's most of the time is persons being invited are sent to training. Some persons may not know. There's no, like you said, regular competition to actually select and do that kind of stuff. But there's a process. The process may not be the best. but that is what exists. And based on what we're seeing here, that process needs to be improved. Because based on Pinner's point, the fact that you guys went into the rural areas and recognized that there was some talent, we wouldn't. These are persons obviously who we're gonna miss, and who usually make the team would be persons who are from Sardine or persons who are from clubs who pay attention to whenever there's a national trials, or who can afford to send players to training, which should not necessarily be the case. Yes.
I want to use two words: efficiency and reliability. Is that there? Is like a guess something?
Yes, it is. It is. It is.
And that can't be good at all. That can't be good.
So even in all your arguments for the World Cup qualifiers, you weren't satisfied with the process either. So it goes to show that there's a deficiency in how we select our talent. And in that case, you could see how we lose a lot of talent as well. Jesus Christ, the boss reach. The boss is here.
Patrick?
Nah, you will hear him, man. So yes, it leaves a lot to be desired as it relates to that particular situation. But we could move forward as well. So the conversation has started. So let's go again. So what FIFA is recommending is what FIFA is for a particular point is specific strategy for the identification of talent. So that's the first thing. Just what we were saying. We need to have a specific strategy for doing it. A significant number of MAs have no talent identification strategy. Siemens is one. In addition, they have no defined criteria for player selection and no database or system to track potential talent. Implementing each of these systems will yield immediate performance gains. The most successful MAs have comprehensive scouting system in place with appropriate resources and technical expertise ready to identify players around the country, regardless of their location or the level of competition. Bolstering talent identification and development events and programs which offer as many players as possible the opportunity to be seen is essential to maximize the potential of the national talent pool. MA should invest in technical staff with a high level of expertise who can be attracted to regional FAs and who are responsible for talent identification and development, and coach development, course delivery, club visits, monitoring. Well, I could say, at least from my vantage point at the moment, this process is being developed at the moment. So hopefully we could bear some fruit from this particular part. Next thing that FIFA is also recognizing is the organization and structure of the national talent identification systems. MA should focus on developing strategies that provide clear direction, set specific targets for players' development, and seek to maximize the potential of the talent pool. Ideally, the strategy will be closely linked to the national playing philosophy and game programs. MA should seek to develop specialists, both at the association and club, who understand the particular challenges of identifying talent in youth players as at different stages of the player's pathway. For many MAs, there are significant geological challenges to develop a national network with different obstacles faced depending on whether areas are urban or rural. MAs should create a national network of talent identification specialists that spans every region in their country. This would enable MAs to have oversight of the whole talent pool, not just the players from more accessible areas, but also those from hard to reach rural regions. So again, this is just to confirm what we have just been speaking about. the lack of having this particular strategy, the lack of having a national philosophy or system or style compounds the fact that how do we define a talent should really be the question. So the talent should be based on what we require within our philosophy or game model. A player who's coming to the national setup should already understand what are the qualities that are expected. What is the coach looking for? What is the federation looking for? But we are still not on that particular page. So at this given moment, this is why for me, a lot of the time I don't argue in football and I don't really get myself too much involved, because I recognize that all these processes, all these stages, we have skipped all of them and gone directly onto the field. So I know it would be problems. So I'll leave the floor open to you guys based on those 2 points that we just looked at.
Okay, I think, when it comes to talent identification, there's 3 processes, I think, right? I think we only follow one. It's competition. You understand?
Yeah.
Prior to that, there's a learning factor, as I say, learning and training. It's not in our culture at the youth level, right? And somehow, if the guys who tuned into Theon last Saturday, I tuned in late, and part of it was, the dealing with psychology, right?
Mm-hmm.
But here, psychology plays a great deal of talent identification.
Yep.
We have to know that, like, when I come back to St. Vince, right, and I go with my kids, they don't like to train. They don't like to train, and that's a big problem for me. How could I do anything in soccer and you don't like to train? As a coach, that's a no-no for me. You understand? So the psychological part of this that we don't really have touch on with our kids. All that got to change. It's a lot of stuff to do.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Anyone else before we proceed?
When you say they don't like to train, is it like the majority?
It's a game culture. It's a game culture. So they just wanna show up to play games.
And play games. Right. They just want to right.
So this is why, let me tell you something.
Even in the higher levels?
Yeah. Across the board.
Guys, let me tell you something. I am big.
The teams that are dominating are the ones that train. Go ahead.
Of course, that makes sense. Absolutely.
Guys, I am big when it comes to equipment. It's the most important tool in development. When as a coach, you have all of these equipments on the field, and the kids are utilizing these equipment, there's a sense of excitement. Kids like to jump, they like to do all kind of, and they can see in themselves, hey, I didn't know I could do this kind of stuff. And that will enable them to come to practice the next day and always come back because they're learning something. I mean, my camps this week, right? The response that we get from our kids, they say, Coach, you're not going to be here next week. We want you to be here next week. You understand? And they are improving so much. And because today I do some drills that I do with the national team. And these kids they really can't play yet. But they're doing it slower. They're not as efficient. But with practice, a coach will get them there. So training is so important. And it comes from the coach. It starts with the coach. And It goes to, to the clubs, to the community. And this is why, Scrummer, are you there? And this is why we love to train. If I'm not training, if I'm not coaching, I can't function.
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay.
I'm here. So the problem with our culture, the difference also is also the financial aspect, whereby kids up pay for everything, and kids down there get everything free. So I think the kids that get things free, they should able to to actually want it more. But it's a different culture, and how could we change it? Huh?
Did you say that the kids who get the equipment free don't want to change more, or the vice versa? I missed that.
Okay. The kids up here, right? Their parents are more involved. Things are being paid for, right? And the kids in Vinci, the parents are not involved at all. So, and majority of the things is for free. If the training is free, the coaches don't get paid. It's different than up here. Up here is like, if it's like me personally, I'm not doing nothing free, nothing at all. Okay, and 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 it's like you invest in equipment. It is not because you want to look good. It's not because you want to look good. You invest in equipment because you want to do good.
I think
Okay.
you want to get the kids to get better.
Yeah, you want the kids to get better and feel good being there.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like in Vince, are they talking about these programs? They're gonna start this program. They're gonna start. And how much equipment are they willing to invest in?
And Scrummer, just to add on to that, right?
Yeah.
Grassroots program is the most expensive program.
Yeah.
And I remember Tian saying a couple of weeks ago, oh, you don't need, you don't need to have all these, you get a ball and, you understand?
Grassroots program up here, right? Grassroots program up here is park and recreation, and those kids pay $140 for an 8-week program. Okay, and they get the T-shirt, they bring the ball, the coach gets the equipment, our equipment, and they're happy to be there. They're happy to be there. And do you know the amazing thing? Practice is 2 times a week and game on Saturday. Grassroots program.
But is what we talk about this a lot of times, right? And this is why I think the first step in developing, whether it's youth or developing clubs, it has to start with the community. I understand. The the private academies, like Theon, like Sardine, yeah, who else we have, Hope. That's okay, but if you remember, and I'm not saying you have to go back to that, but it worked in the past. The community is so important when it comes to developing football, in St. Vincent, and because of the success of some of these academies, right? We have and they have taken kids away from the community, which is okay. But there are other kids in the community that I think what we have lost, right? And Scumber, you mentioned that, a couple of weeks ago on the Zoom, there are individuals in the community, right, who assume that leadership role. If you remember, a long time ago, right? They never used to do federation. My friend in Trinidad, we talking about that also. The reason why he's saying the reason why Trinidad is so bad in soccer right now is because of all of these professional teams. He's saying long time ago in Trinidad, in every community, there were volunteers in the community who practice more or less every day. And that's what we need to do with our kids. They're close to home. We play every day. And we have to start that way. I understand that, the private academies, the kids have to travel, which is okay. But I'm a community person because, I'm a success from the community. And the community just kids play every day. And you can't tell me you practice once a week or instead of twice a week that you can get good. And our current program right now, our grassroots program in St. Vincent right now, they're talking about having it on a Saturday morning for 2 hours or whatever. Could never work. No. So all of these things, we're saying in terms of development, we want our members association to flood the whole place. This is what you have the money for. Buy the balls, buy goalposts, put them in the community. As Theon was saying the other day, put them in, on the concrete, on the beach. All of these little things, we have to do, and that's part of development. That's how we have to. This is how we have to develop football in St. Vincent.
USSF is doing that. It's called, I think it's called Soccer in the Streets. They've created a ton of little mini fields everywhere over the past couple of years, like converted, small city spaces that haven't been used into mini small-sided soccer courts. And then they bring in kind of like, I don't know if you guys know, but Soccer for Success is another program that they have, which is free for the communities.
Yeah,
that's what they're doing
I'm
in a lot of places. Okay, yeah. So that's what they're doing is converting small spaces, into little soccer goals and soccer nets, and with soccer nets, and I think in some places putting up lights so that way it's safe at night. I think they've done that in a few areas, and it's a really good thing. I want to say that it's probably not altruistic because you end up developing more talent that way as well. But it's a symbiotic relationship. It's also helpful for the community. Is another fun thing for kids to do to stay out of trouble and to keep communities more family oriented. So it works in a lot of good capacities for the community, and it could be a good thing. It's interesting that you say that, Sammy, for Trinidad, that you see that your friend told you this. that's his observation. It's very interesting.
And guys,
And let me give you an experience. I grew up in Kittles, okay? I started playing for Mercury under 19 team at 11. 11. I was the youngest, and I'm talking guys 17, 16, 18, and I'm playing under 19. But the feeling, the way we bond together, and everybody look out for each other, and nobody care if I was the youngest. I was treated like a soccer player at that age. Okay? Now, and everything was in the community. Once more careers playing, Kettle's people is down Camden Park playing field. The park is full with Kettle's people. People even looking down from the station. And we practice what 5 days a week, and play on Saturday. So all those things we gotta try and bring back. I mean, the federation, they have the funds.
guys, okay, wait. Just wait. Hold on. Let's just touch on something, comrades. Right. It's not necessarily the federation, you know. Where the kids are in school. This is where the kids are. You understand? So we're telling the government, here's something. You guys have a responsibility. You understand? In my opinion, and this is my opinion, sports is important just as math and English. And you guys are not giving the kids enough time for physical education. And that has to change.
Nah, I'm coming.
All right, guys, we will continue the conversation. There's a lot more talking points to come. So let's just continue the presentation. All right, so the next thing we're going to look at is more successful MAs have developed analytical tools to help measure and track the talent pool, utilizing database and building depth charts to monitor talent. Core functions of a properly developed talent identification and development system, and should ideally be in place across MAs. Given that almost all MAs have acknowledged the key role of the academies playing in talent identification and development, it is essential that there is close cooperation and alignment between MA and technical and talent identification and development system and those being developed at the leading clubs and academies. Developing a range of game program opportunities such as festivals, league, tours, tournaments through an MA's technical division challenges players and enables coaches to extend and consolidate the development of these players by exposing them to different tasks. The development of MA-led training centers that provide training programs to select players but sit outside the academy pathway has proven to be complementary and successful in its own right in terms of developing players. With cooperation and club academies in this regard can be beneficial to player development to avoid conflict. The next particular phase we have to look at is the involvement of academies in a nationwide plan for long-term player development. Where possible, the MA should take the strategic lead in overseeing the auditing and regulation of the academy system, using independent standards organizations to provide independent measurement and auditing of the youth system by providing beneficial has proven beneficial for a number of MAs. MAs have the opportunity to set targets for the development of homegrown players. These targets are often based on players making their debut and appearing in professional leagues. The key to effective engagement of academy in long-term player development is the creation of an academy performance plan. An academy performance plan is a strategy created by the academy and is ideally endorsed and supported by the Emmy, which sets out the academy's long-term plan to develop players. An inherent weakness in many of the academy systems across the global ecosystem is the perceived low conversion rate from academy players to professional, to first team professional. Proactive MAs have sought to regulate the system to ensure that academies and clubs provide appropriate aftercare for players released from the youth system. So this is the context which I was talking before, which is we should not be focusing on developing players to play football. We should be developing citizens who happen to play football, because not everyone going to make it. They're not going to make it along the pathway of football. Parent educate. Go ahead.
So, what would be our mission in when it comes to talent identification? You think?
What the mission?
Yeah.
Well, the mission for me is to look at the first particular scenario that you were saying, which is what is the strategy? So creating that particular strategy. The next one that should be key is, can we get more persons playing? That's one. Playing more and playing more regularly. Can we have more scouting systems? Two. Can we have a year-round program that allows for talent identification? But within the process, I'm saying the key should not be to solely look at the player as a footballer, but rather a citizen who will have to function.
Yes. This is where we are. We are football people.
Mm-hmm.
You understand?
Mm-hmm.
I could understand you say, if you say you're not doing it, for the purpose of developing, the youth national teams. I could understand that part of it.
Mm-hmm.
You understand? But this is what we do. We're football coaches.
Yes.
So let's concentrate on football.
I am not. What I'm trying to bring across to you, if we concentrate on football, solely on football and nothing else, right? What kind of player are we developing?
Well, no, I mean football. It teaches, there's so many things that football teaches. Everything about life comes.
And that's what I'm trying to bring across to you. There's no emphasis on that particular side. The emphasis is on technique and tactics, and not on the mental side, which is what helps them to be a better person.
Well, we take it for granted. Like
that's my context. That's what I'm trying to bring across.
Right. Like how, and this is what I like about you, right? We know that all of these things have to be practiced.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not slowly on technique and stuff. We know about that. But I don't think everybody understands that.
Yep.
As long as they have them on the field just playing and playing in that competition, they think that's okay. But it doesn't work like that. And as we say, we gotta change all that. Must.
Yep. So one of the other key points that have been mentioned is and I think Mr. Alexander mentioned it before, which is the involvement of parents. I don't think parents are actually involved in the entire process. There's not a relationship between the club and the parent in the context of the parent indicating what do they want for their child, and vice versa, the club stating what do we want from your child, and how do we meet at a midpoint where we can produce a better citizen or a better child where the child can excel within the given sport. Now, the reason I'm emphasizing on this is why we keep talking talent identification, we keep thinking solely about the game or the playing of the game. But talent identification also needs to span across where we need more referees, we need more managers, we need more coaches. All right, we need people to be fans. So this is within the same context. So it's not just solely about can we win the game or can we teach technique and tactics, but how can we make an ecosystem which allows for the flourishing of football and the development of football across the country.
Just like how we did before. There was a substitute for the parents. And guess who? It was the community, the relationship in the community. That was
Right.
substitute.
So that doesn't exist anymore.
Right. So I just think that
So just think about it. Before, your parents would be okay if my father's parents spoke to you and disciplined you. Yes? And
Yes.
the community looked out for you to make sure everything is good. Now everyone is for themselves. Because you can't speak to this given child. People stick to themselves. It's that tightness that used to exist, it doesn't exist anymore. And I think the formalizing the process of actually bringing the parents into the clubs needs to take place, because at the moment sometimes it seems as if we are more so babysitters instead of partners with parents to actually develop these kids. All right. So within this particular structure, there needs to be a collaboration between MAs, the top leagues, the clubs, in supporting the development of the academies and clubs. A lot of the times, each of these, so let's look at the MA, the league and the club, they all have separate objectives, which do not feed back to the talent development for the national program. This is where the strategy needs to go, where everything feeds back into each other. So the philosophy, the style of play, the game model, everything feeds back into this particular structure. Because at the end of the day, the reason you're playing football, well, for fans, basically, is for the national team. But realistically, the point of football is business. So how can we increase the potential? Is to have more people playing. More people playing, you have more fans. More fans means more money. More persons buying football equipment and that kind of stuff. So that's the context in which we have to look at it. While we are fans of the game, we have to also consider the children and who they are going to be after the game and what type of citizens they're going to be. How do we make football sustainable across the generations? So that's the platform. It's to integrate the MA, the leagues, and the clubs so that everyone is on the same page.
So let me ask you a question now. FIFA want the MAs to have these identification centers. It is going to be like that?
So what this document is doing is not necessarily telling you what to do, but mostly giving recommendations of what is the best practice.
Because what I'm fearful about, right, is that we're using this to develop the youth national teams, and there'll be a lot of players who get left out, and we don't really want that, because if that's the case, and because everybody's saying, okay, let's have like 4 different centers and stuff like that, and players have to travel to these centers, and sometimes that's especially on the girls' side. Who's going to let the daughter come out, to these areas, and they have to go home at night and they can't get home and stuff like that?
Well, that's the responsibility of the federation. But the context of well, at least what I am proposing is 4 zones. All right? And the 4 zones will be considered as academies. Now, within each zone, the expectation is for each age group, there's roughly about, let's say, 20 to 30 players with each age group. But the remainder of players within the age group are expected to be walking along with their clubs. So it's not necessarily that you're only focusing on these particular players. the clubs have to still be doing their thing. So there could be a late developer. You never know. And part of this discussion gonna come out tonight where you recognize that most of the national teams, the players who make the teams are the ones who are born earlier in the year. And that's obvious because they are more mature in terms of physically and sometimes mentally as well. So these are the players who usually get to play. And the fact that you have it's every 2 years, it would mean that a particular age group doesn't necessarily get to play at a World Cup or a regional competition because it's every 2 years or every 4 years that there's actually a competition. So these are part of the issues that exist at the moment in terms of talent identification and development.
So what age, would you start with them?
In terms of what? The centers?
The players who are going to be, in these centers, yeah.
The centers for me really starts at 15.
15?
Yeah.
15?
Yep.
Why? About 13? Yep.
About 13?
Yeah.
The
15 is too late.
Understand yes, it's 13. Right? Let me do say 15. Yes, it's 13, but I'm saying 15 because of the way I'm looking at it, where they have to sleep over and that kind of stuff. That's why I said the 15s, because my mind already gone to what I was thinking about. Yes, 13s, they're gonna be within their specific age range at 13 as well. But I was also looking at the selection of the national team. The lowest competition you have is really the under 15s. So that's why I said 15s. Right? But yes, I agree that you could start at 30 to identify some level of talent. All right. All right. So one of the other things that has been recognized is regional differences. So within a specific country, and it's something I've mentioned here. One of the issues you would have is within each particular area, you might have, for example, more facilities, or you might have more players, or you might have more coaches, or it may be more resources in terms of finance. Each of these affect the talent identification process. It may even be the surface itself that these children are playing on that affects this particular development. So what is expected or what should be practices some level of consistency in terms of the game model across so that each child could develop similarly while still developing based on their particular region, because each region would produce a specific type, and I don't want it to be, or I wouldn't like it to be a system where all the players are the same. So that's just my context on that particular point. All right, so measures.
Can you give an example of those differences?
Differences. So in the urban areas, the numbers are high in everything. So whether it's the finance, the coaches, the number of players. So what tends to happen, because the focus is more so on winning at the moment, a lot of players get left behind in that process, or they stop playing because they're not getting game time. Switch to the rural side, there's a lot less footballing opportunities for juniors to play because of lack of coaches, lack of competition, lack of resources in terms of balls or equipment, whatever it is. Then if you look at the surface and the type of fees and the culture within the given area, you would say Barley, Layu, and Camden Park have a greater culture as it relates to development of youth players at this particular moment. So the particular areas have also dictated what happens. So in these same areas, you would recognize there's a higher number of goalkeepers in Layu, the place called Layu, because in their area, they don't usually play small goals. They always play keepers. Hence the reason they produce a lot of goalkeepers. right?
Interesting.
Barley, for example, they usually produce more defenders because the length of their field is very short. So most of the game you're actually defending because the surface of the field doesn't allow for passing and movement. So there's a lot more long balls. So they produce persons who are good at heading and defending the ball. When you switch to Georgetown, on the other hand, they have a very large playing field that's very flat, and their particular style of play is trying to move the ball on the ground and more technical type players. Similarly with Camden Park. When you go to Sandhill, they play more on a court-sized fields, a lot of court, small-sided games. So their technical ability in terms of pass and move and play is a lot different to everywhere else you go. All right. And similarly, if you go to Bible, the field is very small and short. Those players tend to not develop well in terms of cover and balance because of the shortness of the field. So those are just some observations I have made and I've seen as a result of the different areas.
Interesting.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So there needs to be some measures in place to facilitate the transition from youth to senior level. And this one is kind of interesting for me because if at the moment, if a player transitions from U17, there's nowhere to go actually. If you can't make a premier team, what tends to happen is you may end up playing in a first division team. And if I could use my club, for example, we roughly have about this year we have about 25 under 17s. And these, when they transition to the under 19s, if the competition is in tongue is not going on, which is forms, which is the under 19, we basically are gonna lose that entire class of players because from that you might only find, let's say, 3 or 4 who are at that level that you could say, all right, we could give them some games in the Premier Team. Because that transition, it's so wide because there's lack of opportunity for these players to play. It defeats the purpose in terms of talent identification and transferring of players into the senior level. But obviously, it's a bottleneck as well, so you expect to lose players as well.
Yes, that change very easily.
Mm-hmm.
Implement club license system.
Well, yes, and like the point says here as well, we need to have B team competitions. That was supposed to happen, but again, it didn't happen. And again, that's part of the reason why System 3 lost a lot of their players as well.
Why didn't it happen though? Because of COVID and all that kind of stuff?
Yes, I would like to believe so. Because what was supposed to happen was this within this particular competition, they were gonna bring in teams like Blossom and Baga FC. The clubs who are trying to be affiliated, they would have played in that particular competition against the B teams for the Premier teams. So that would have been sort of an audition for these particular clubs to come into to being affiliated with the Football Federation. But that process never came off, so I can't confirm or deny any particular reason. But yes, COVID came at the same time, and then obviously the volcano put a halt to all of that particular stuff.
I mean, I'm looking at this thing, right, guys? Okay, we're changing in St. Vincent when it comes to development of youth and football, right? And we're moving because if you look at the organized clubs, education is people who educated, control them. People who structured control them. You understand? And that's a problem. You understand? Because here we have like five of the top clubs in St. Vincent, our academies, right? We have to the community football. We have to the clubs in the community. So those clubs in the community, the other clubs in the community, there's a lack of success in those clubs because they are not organized, they're not structured And the people who are running them probably doesn't have the education to do it. And that's a huge problem for all, because those clubs represent all of St. Vincent. And the guys, the 5 people who control these 5 academies, who are the best academies, the best football, they're structured, they're educated, they're college educated and stuff like that. And we have to touch on that. We can't ignore that. We cannot ignore that. And all of this, this is why it's very important to have these kind of discussions. Because I'm an advocate for community football, community. Because there are more kids there, the school there in the community. You understand? And the reason why these kids go to these academies is because what you guys can give them, you give them structure, you help them out, whether it's, financially or with the boots or whatever. You understand? So this is where our member association comes in. They have to do a better job funding the clubs in the community. And unless we do that, we'll never get good in football.
So you kind of confirming my point from earlier, which is we have to develop the entire talent of the given player. So if you use me as an example, you might say I am educated, but football taught me that particular structure. I would agree that my parents are key factors, but football contributed to that. So that's my context in what I was explaining before. If we create more leaders, then this process becomes easier as we move forward. Instead of producing solely players, look to produce leaders who
So
can lead them
okay.
And so forth.
And guys, this is so important. This topic is so important, right? Because when we speak to these guys in the government, right, these are the kind of things that they have to hear. They understand this kind of dialogue. You understand? They understand that how important it is, because they're community people. Politics, these politicians are community people. You understand? And they will ensure that their community grow, especially at the youth level. The youth leaders. The youth leaders. This is why I'm just looking at youth leaders. You understand? So I'm telling them, hey, you guys have to get involved. You guys have to get, and it's just not the federation, they have a responsibility. And somehow, with the right people in the community, because they're not going to go outside of the community. They want to develop their own, and the first thing that you mentioned there, Theon, we have to live together and we have to work together. And we have to start in the community. So we don't want to, while you guys doing a tremendous, Blossom, Sardine, Theon, tremendous. I can see the growth. When you say you have 17, it's 17 to 25 on the 17 players, wow, that's tremendous.
Yeah.
That is tremendous. This is U17.
So within the same practice games, right? That we have in. So if you look at Blossom, if you look at if you look at Jibel, at least because I am organizing the competition, my teams are playing 2 games. So, for example, females, the team was split in 2. One group played against System 3, one group played against Hope. Under 17, one group. The group was divided into 2 basically. One particular group played a half, another group played a half. That's how I tried. The U13s, the team was split in 2. One team played Blossom, one team played System 3. So the players are there. So it's how can we, similarly Blossom is the same. It's the same thing. System 3 is the same basically. I think the others are catching on and trying to do more stuff, but the numbers are there. And the talent is there because from the games I saw, easily, my brother, from just that group of players that you saw, you could be proud to say, yo, we could possibly have some very talented players moving forward. But the things that we're mentioning here have to come in place.
So
right?
okay, in that, you're the youth coordinator,
Mm-hmm.
right? How you gonna make this nationally?
Oh, quite easy.
Or you know, or from the member for the member association.
For me, it's quite easy. Execution would be the main thing.
Okay.
Right? Execution would be the main thing. So it's not hard to, at least in my opinion, it's not hard to do this in Camden Park. It's not hard to do this in Georgetown. It's not hard because the context of doing this particular series of practice games is just to show how simple the structure is and how easy it could be done. It's just a matter of communicating. Okay, Volcanoes, we have a game. You want to play? Yes. This is the time. Bam. You show up. And we work on it. Yes.
Yeah. Before there's a federation, you know, that's how we used to do it, you know.
Exactly. So, and I recognize what your point has been for the entire night. For the night, you have been repeatedly saying it's not the federation, but what people want to do. And I think that's a part of the problem with our culture right now. And it goes back to what Alexander said in terms of we're always expecting free stuff and handouts instead of being the change that we want to see, which is put in your work and just do your thing. Just do what you need to do. No wait, just get it done. Make sure you stay within the lines of what is expected and start working. At least that's my view. Right? But another one of the points that was kind of looked over was, and what they are emphasizing the last one here is to be careful with the ages in terms of the players who are born early in the year versus those who are born later in the year. Those who are born later in the year will be late developers, and as a result, they may be left out in this developmental phase. But what is generally found is that these players later on tend to be the ones who continue to excel, and the ones who used to push before aren't really the big players. Another context, we tend to use the bigger and stronger players, and what has happened is they start playing and using their strength instead of knowledge of the game and technique and tactics. So when these players actually meet with players who are of the particular size, they recognize how deficient they are as players because they can't bully them anymore. So they don't have the technique, they don't have the movement of the ball, they don't have the understanding of the game. So there's twofold to it. We focus on the bigger ones because they're able to use their physique. But at the same time, we don't develop them technically and tactically. And then there's the ones who are born later on in the year. We kind of overlook them because they may be small. But because of being small, they learn to use space. Because you're small, you don't want to be where everybody is. So these are the ones who generally develop a better technique and understanding space awareness because they always were small and people had to do them. So it's just some general things to look at. Yes.
But listen to this now. When is it late in the year? You know, you talk about a couple of months, right?
So one is born in January and one may be born in November.
So a couple of months, right? But
yep.
But how it used to be, you know, is under 12 playing against under 18 and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I agree with you. I've seen it a lot of times. I've seen it happen a lot of times. I've seen it. So one of the recommendations that FIFA is putting forward is that MAs do not have to have a nationwide plan for talent development. They need to prioritize the creation of such a plan by working in close collaboration with key stakeholders, including leagues, clubs, and academies to provide appropriate training, playing, and development opportunities. And this is my belief as well. We still think that the federation should do this, they should do that. My thing is their task should be to create policies where the leagues and the clubs and the other stakeholders and academies are the ones who do the execution. So this is the general context. Having a talent identification and development strategy that aligns with the wide objective of the MA's ecosystem is essential for unified identification process. The TID system should also be holistic in the scope and look to identify players across the talent pool for a multitude of developmental reasons, not just to serve the national team. So again, we need referees, coaches, managers, physios. So there's talent identification spreads across the entire sphere. The regional differences within a country poses unique challenges, and for urban environment present different challenges for TID than rural areas. However, by creating a national network of TID specialists that span all regions of the country, MAs can guarantee thorough oversight of the entire talent pool available. All MAs should strive to put full development TID systems in place where using database and building depth charts to monitor talent are standard practice, developing analytical tools to help measure and track the talent pool is a key characteristic of effective MAs in this area. So this is something we're actually struggling because we don't like to take data and to refer to actually planning. So this is something I think we're gonna really need to look at. The most effective TID systems are player-centered. This involves players being at the heart of the process, being both challenged and supported in a way that is beneficial to their development. Systems with these characteristics, not ones that view players as means to financial gain, should be promoted. Not only do MAs, Confederation, and FIFA have the key role of building towards giving every talent a chance, but they are also responsible for protecting the player by ensuring that the TID system and talent development pathway are safe and appropriate. Only a handful of MAs implement robust. Let me read this for Sammy again. Only a handful of MAs implement robust club licensing systems. Only a handful of MAs implement robust club licensing systems that incorporate regulations on youth development, a strong relationship in this sense, as well as collaborating between MAs, leagues, and clubs regarding audits and quality assurance of academies would see significant performance benefits in youth development.
But this is the problem why we're so poor in the Caribbean. Our results are so poor in CFU. That's the problem right there. And they have to recognize that. And the thing is, you know, and I just have to laugh. They go to these meetings, you know. The head of these executive, and they tell them every time, and they come back and they don't do anything about it. They don't do one thing about it, and they expect to win. How? Never.
The intention sometimes may not necessarily be to win. Maybe the intention is to have a specific portfolio. Sometimes it may be, am I able to execute? Sometimes it may be the culture of the particular organization where it's taking place. But as you said, what ends up happening is nothing is done.
Okay, let me ask you a question now.
Yeah.
You put on the president hat. You.
Uh-huh.
You get it done? You don't think so?
Get what done?
Well,
this?
All of this.
Yeah. At
right?
least I believe I would try, yes.
That's it. Good answer.
The transition from junior to senior level is one of the most defining moments of a player's career. During this time, elite youth players have commitment to different teams. MAs need to emphasize the importance of transitioning and stress the need to identify someone who is responsible for guiding a player during this time. This is crucial to preventing situations where potential stars personal and player development are in limbo between all the teams to which they are committed, while none of these teams takes full accountability. So I'll rephrase this slightly. As soon as we see a player who's 15, we tell him he's good, and then bam, he's done for that. He's done. He's done after that because there's not much people who will be advising him on what good means. And then he doesn't want to train anymore and then picks up an attitude and everything else happens. The amount of competitive playing time that a player gets when young can be decisive in determining the heights they will reach in their prime. Not receiving enough competitive minutes can prove harmful to a young player's development. MA should implement strategies that guarantee young players the competitive playing time they need to reach their full potential. So this is one of the contexts that our current competition is trying to take into consideration. So we play in quarters, and the substitutions can only occur during the quarter and not during the game is playing, unless it's for injury. Reason for this, we guarantee that a player at least plays a minimum of 10 to 12 minutes every time they show up to play. Thank you very much. This ends the presentation for today. Is there any comments and anything else you would like to reinforce before we close out? Let me see if I can find this.
So some of these things, when I'm going to remind you some of these things, and it's just possessions.
What you think? You don't start because I start already?
Jibels.
I don't start already?
You see, there's a conflict of interest here, man.
How is there a conflict of interest?
Yeah, Jibels, Jibels.
How so? What's the conflict of interest for Dribble?
Jabals, you're working for Jabals and you're working for the Federation. You understand?
What's the conflict? What's the conflict? What conflict do you see?
This is a Jabals initiative.
Yeah, and
you understand? This is not the Federation. So everybody always not the Federation to say, oh, they ain't doing this, they ain't doing that. You understand? So that stigma is still there.
So two things to consider. One, Jebel is the Football Federation. The federation is the affiliates put together. Two, there are certain regulations that are out at the moment, which I don't think the federation wants to touch at the moment. Hence the reason they have postponed all the football and everything else. So from an organization perspective, I think that's part of the issue. Jibel probably have a little bit more flexibility. So I want to play something for you now, and tell me what you guys think. All right, tell me what you guys think about what you're about to see. Okay, you could comment during or after, basically. Recording in progress. All right, let me know when you could see the screen. If you see the screen, you're good to go.
Yeah, it's there. Is this what you had over the weekend?
Yeah.
Hold on. Yeah.
Akimi really ain't show them boys, boy.
I put that stuff.
Okay.
You want to say that?
In this particular game, System 3 has a girl actually playing with this particular game. Very aggressive, has some potential as a player. This is actually Jebel without team versus System. Just a little clip for you guys to see some of what took place. And a couple more videos to come out in terms of on our platform. So highlights. What do you think? What do you saw? How can we improve other than uniforms? Shadell, you were there. What's your view? How can we improve? What are you thinking? Sammy, what are you thinking? Vicky, what are you thinking from what you saw? How can we improve?
Well, I didn't. I mean, it's far away to see it, but do you guys have the lines on the field? How do you guys make the lines? Are there lines on the field? Is it set up by cones? Is it like a light color? Is
Cones at the moment. So I actually use one half instead of going vertically. I went horizontally. So the half itself is the field. So that's the context at the moment. But I'm
okay.
trying to add some more fields this weekend. So hopefully we'll get some more lines and that kind of stuff on different.
That's a bigger space than I thought.
Yeah. So on the
There's
other
a lot
side,
of kids there. That's good.
yeah. Yeah. So on the other side, the plan is to have more fields and have different games playing simultaneously and so forth.
And there were those were the girls and the boys there that you had.
Yeah, the girls were
videoed.
on course. Yeah, the girls were on course, and then the boys came after the juniors.
Right.
Shada, unmute yourself. Let me hear how we looked. What can we do to improve? Like she gone too.
Tell me. Sorry, I was in the kitchen.
So I was asking, what's your views on what took place last Friday and what you think we need to do to improve?
I mean, I think it's a step in the right direction, you know. I think as the week go by, we would see more players coming out, more teams. But overall, with everything that we went through in the past couple months, I think we're heading in the right direction. So It's just time.
What you thought about the Jibel versus Blossom game? The under 13. Well, actually, my U11 played your 13. What do you think about that game? I think that game ended up 3-1 in favor of Blossom.
It's 3-1 or 4-1. The kids tell
4-1.
me 4-1.
One of them, 4-1, 3-1. Either
I'm gonna be honest with you, though. I'm going for a right winger. He look real small for his age, though, but I like him.
He's actually 11, eh?
So he tell me,
Yeah, 11.
but I think in terms of the age group, I think they played much mature
Yep.
than the age.
Yep.
Because when we look at St. Vincent versus Guatemala, right? We weren't seeing the movements of the ball from side to side, and those U13s were doing that on both sides of the field.
Correct.
You understand? They were taking the time, opening, looking for the net. Playing out from the back. When they can't go forward, they go back, and they're patient. So I think the Sats, my U17, after they played, I said to them, because the first half I didn't like. I was just observing, I was just observing. I left Jazzy to do her thing, and I was just observing the first half and listening, the complaints and everything, the nagging. And halftime, I said one thing to them, and it's like, yes, we're dominating the game, but we're not making the passes. We're forcing. And I think second half they played better, the U13s. Monday in training, my midfield, TY, that is what we call him, TY. In training, when they're playing against the girls, because we usually had the U13 playing against the girls. And in training, he would be so dominant, aggressive, and everything. And against you, it's like he confused, he's scared. And I asked him, what's going on?
So that's what these Saturdays for. What if you can happen after 5 weeks of play? That's
why I say it is a step in the right direction. And I want the 17 too. I'm interested to see what our senior team do. Saturday we play, right? Friday, we're playing Saturday.
Saturday should be.
Our under 17, they would beat our senior team. They actually knocking the ball like playing football.
Yeah.
So
my goals for my under 17 team was more. If you look at how the team was separated, it was to have two even teams. It wasn't necessarily that one was stronger than the other, but the first ones, I didn't put any leader on the team because I wanted to see how they would solve the problems. And then what I wanted from them was playing out from the back. My focus was never about, boy, we need to beat Blossom. Yes, winning is key. But can we start playing out from the back and keep possession? But you saw them trying to do that for the entire game. I was satisfied in that end. I was disappointed in the way the goals scored, yes. But our objectives, I thought we hit them, except for the fact that we lost. But I was really satisfied with all of the teams that played, basically. Really.
I think something we need to work on with all our youth players, the youth national teams, is going in the gym and making use of it. Because you see the size of your boys on your first team that start the under 17 game.
Yeah.
They look like old men. And my players was like, Coach, we're going on. Them guys saying in under 17.
Yep.
And I said to them, look back at games. Look at our players compared to players when we go abroad. They look old. You can't judge them based on it. And if we keep using that as excuse not to win and all of that, play football, then I think we heading on the wrong road there. I think we need to use the gym.
The disadvantage too of that my players have is that most of them that you see look big, they just got big. So they can right now. So that's the reason I wanted to see them play the ball out the back, because the coordination, the taller ones, the bigger ones, not really there as yet. So I kind of patient with them, and I understand because we have yet to really start training because most of those players you see there, all them from the red zone really. And they in shooters all over the place. Those who could shop down sign and shop. So it's once they shop on Saturday, I'm quite happy. Just to see them most of the time and just play, man, enjoy yourself.
Right.
Yeah, but it was real fun for me. I really enjoyed.
Yeah, especially the under 13s. Yeah, see the stand. It's like we had we own Euros going on when the under 13 been playing.
And it's both sides, eh? Both
Yeah.
sides. No midfielder when he pick it up, the same little guy there. When he pick it up, he do his thing. I like your midfielder, do the clear one.
The Sparrow, the Syrian boy.
Yes, I like them a lot.
I like him and but oh gosh, he lazy too now.
No, well, you could
Lazy.
see that in terms of you could see how he's built and that kind of stuff. But in terms of positioning, for his position, he's always in the right position. One, two,
Yeah.
when he gets it, he always is looking to make the pass, open up and play the ball. So you could see he already has some elements of a central midfielder, which is where he really playing. He always supporting to receive, and he was key. I thought had some good interceptions and made some key passes as well. And this
Yeah,
is where this week is. So this week, I didn't say anything last week, but this week the coaches have meet after the game and have this particular discussion. What you think about my team, what I think about your team, so forth, and exchange some ideas. Yep.
Okay. Nice.
So the future look good.
We're going in the
Not
right
yet.
direction, Sammy.
So,
Be a little patient.
so when y'all talk about, and you're not nice, you're not nice at all.
Is what?
When you talk about playing out to the back, and is the person who's in charge, the coach, the coach, it was in charge.
No, it's not really the coach.
Yes,
I don't disagree is the ability to carry out instruction and doing training.
No, listen to me. Obviously, and you hit it. You hit it right on the head right there. You do that dollars in training. So you're saying that and you mentioning our national team. So that means the national team ain't doing that thing.
In my
Sammy,
opinion,
this is how serious it is, right? Shannon will tell you. In the under 13 game, my keeper kept playing the ball. We trying to play out the ball, but he kept throwing it or passing it in the middle. And what happened was one of them ended up scoring. You would think that after that, he can kick everything long. I went directly to him and I said, do it again.
Yes,
do it again. This time, show me what you're supposed to do. He said, when I play it in the middle, they get it. So I asked him where to play it. He said, on the side. I said, well, do it, play it on the side. And for the entire rest of the game, he played it out the back, out the side. And it kept walking every time. And after I asked him how he feels, he said, yeah, good. He said, yeah, I make a mistake, but still, I kind of had fun because I saw it happening and wherever else. So, well, say what else do you want? So,
and that's why I say, in preseason, right? You have to have like 8 games because the defensive midfield, he will give away a lot of goals playing out to the back. You understand? So that is why it's so important. You know what I mean? As you say, with practice and repetition, and you get it right. So you guys, you know what I mean? I think we're on the, we're in the right direction there when it comes to, style of play and all that kind of stuff,
Yep.
And that's what I think, the clubs, and I'm glad that you mentioned that the coaches have to have this conversation. The change that you guys bring to football and St. Are the clubs willing to keep up to maintain that? You understand? That would be nice if they can. That would be really nice if they can.
What I think once these opportunities are available, I think clubs will fall in line. So the problem you were having before is you're waiting until August to play a game. If you have these every weekend, would they would take the initiative and do the thing.
But then again, how is it going to change during the season when you have the national competition? Obviously,
For me, it doesn't change because this age group is not playing. It's only the seniors you're going to be in.
Right, you have to prepare for the most important competition, which is the seniors. It takes away from.
So I'm saying, as administrator, for example, me, it would be still my task to make sure the females, the under 17, the under 14 still have this opportunity to play. Because that's what kept happening. Every time the seniors start, everything stops.
Right.
Everything else stops. That's part of the problem.
But you make it you make it look so easy. Well, it's easy, trust me. You understand?
It is.
Like you don't need any money for that. You say if Theon Gordon got no money, what do you need money for? The federation might say that? Huh?
I might be the problem. Might be the problem. For me, the biggest issue right now is the goalposts. So once you have these goalposts in different areas, anything is the planning becomes so easy and everything else just falls in place.
You could use a better word than that, goalpost. Really? How about equipment? Goalposts, really?
No, for me, right?
Equipment.
No, I'm not disagreeing with you. What I'm saying, anywhere in St. Vincent where there's a goalpost, that's the particular part of the field, there's no grass. Right. So if you provide goalposts of different sizes in the fields, you will have football being played, even though people use their own equipment. That's my point. You flood the place with bars, like you say, and you flood the place with goalposts, and people do what they need to do.
Okay, listen.
You do have going on.
2 examples. Anywhere you go in St. Vincent, and there's football. Look who's playing behind the goal.
Yeah, the children are always there.
As I mentioned before again, I went down in your area, down Leeward, when they have the opening of Cumberland. Somebody was smart enough to buy some $10 ball and sell them. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Most of your players from down there were there at that game. Mm-hmm. And the amount of kids, I swear you have at least 30 to 40 kids after the cricket who's playing football. And nobody is studying them, I'm the only one who's looking at them. And I'm saying, look at this thing here. They have cricket and football breakout at the end of the game. And when we go into the P's, when we go into the P, when we go to the P in the schools, the enthusiasm is there. They want to jump and they're like me. They want to stay in class. They want to play. They want to jump. They want to play. And we can't emphasize how important that is. P is, in the primary school. So you guys on the right track, man. Sustainability. You understand?
Yep.
Sustainability.
And the model that we use in Haiti, in a hard model, you pay for how much you could play.
I just think, when it comes to the centers now, right? It's the most important part of the whole program, because I think it's the end. You have to have the right coaches who dedicated to the centers. I don't want to hear that they have to go to the club team and all that kind of stuff. Hey, these are for the 13 and to the 17 is so important, and just hire the right people, to run those centers.
Mm-hmm. I agree with you.
If you all go afford me, don't
Now we can't afford you.
That's it. And that's going to make people free. I do it for free.
All right, folks, we close off here. Very good discussion. Really appreciated it, Sammy, Shadel, Alexander who left, Vicky, and the great himself who keep dropping out and in. I don't know if his internet pinner. But it's great conversation. Hope we could have the same conversation next week.
That was the last of our topic, right?
No, we still have one more.
Okay.
Probably two more actually, because it's six
Okay.
particular points that we have to look at.
All right.
Did you get the document?
I can't download it from my iPad and and this is not my computer. So my Dropbox and stuff like that is on my personal computer. So I have a little problem with that. So you'll get to me sometime.
All right, cool.
All right, good.
All right,
Thanks.
all right, everybody. Stay safe.
Thank you. Good night.
All right.